Hello, guys. How are you? Today we have a very, very special guest, Simon Brampton. I hope I said the name correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. 9 out of 10. Well done.
perfect. Yeah, and today we're going to talk about a very important and interesting topic, which is bringing up children in a bilingual household. Simon is an expert in that area, and I think it's going to be really awesome to hear about your experience because also you're not only like a theoretical expert, but you have like firsthand experience with your children,
Absolutely.
right? So I
Yeah.
think that's super interesting. And yeah, welcome and thank you for being here with us today.
All right. Now,
If you want, yeah, you
yeah.
can go ahead and introduce yourself, maybe, because yeah, I
Okay.
just gave it. Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, it's been great. Thanks. I've been looking forward to coming onto your channel for a while after we met at the Polyglot gathering, and you
Yeah.
actually in the the actual talk that we did about raising or bringing up a bilingual child, and it's so I'm really happy to be able to talk about it today, and maybe look at the book I have, and we can go through the different stages of bringing up a child in your language when you live in another country that doesn't speak your language. And
Yeah.
it's something I always thought about before I had a child. You say, oh, if I lived in another country, what would happen? Because for me, my
Yeah.
main purpose in life, like most British people, is to make sure everyone in the world speaks or understands English. As Queen Elizabeth I said 500 years ago. So basically, I had that idea in my head that if I had a child, I'd bring up my son in this case in English, and I was a little
Mhm.
bit afraid, thinking about. I thought, wow, what if I fail? Because I thought if he doesn't learn English, I don't think I can live with myself. So first of all, you've got this amazing motivation that some parents don't have because they're very blasé about it. They're very relaxed, and that kind of
Mhm.
annoys me a little bit.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
because
I've seen
yeah,
that happen. Actually, I think it's also
right,
very
yeah,
interesting to
yeah,
see this talk, to have this talk, because I've seen it in a family with three children, and
right,
they were brought up in the U.S., but the
right,
parents spoke Russian, and
right.
so the first two children they speak both languages very well. I mean, English
And
proficiently,
Russian,
like a native,
of
of course,
course. Well, if
and
they've been
Russian
brought
they,
up
they
in America, you'd expect that. Yeah,
yeah, and but
hopefully.
they might have a bit of an accent like in Russian, but like they
Yeah,
speak it freely, right?
yeah,
And the smallest child, he understands Russian, but he doesn't speak it, so he responds in English. And I think this is probably like a fear people have when they try to bring up children bilingually, because like for instance in your case you speak both Catalan and Spanish, so if your child talked back in Spanish or Catalan when you
yeah,
talk to him in English, well, you cannot like pretend that you don't understand. So I guess like my guess, and because I also attended your
yeah.
talk 2 years ago, I think it's you need to make it like very clear and very strict rules so
Absolutely.
that yeah.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
totally. Actually, what you said, I mean, this is, in fact, what you just mentioned, in fact, is the biggest, let's say, mistake that parents make. And in fact, there was a French woman living in the area. It all sort of happened. Everything happens for a reason. Just as I was thinking about the book, and my wife was pregnant and everything, and I met this
Yeah.
woman who was actually Spanish, but she'd been brought up in France, and her
Ah.
parents had brought her up in Spanish, and she came back to
Oh,
Spain,
okay.
and she's married to a Spanish guy here. Anyway, she tried to bring up her child in French, but she said that he always replies to her in Spanish, and that she hasn't been able to do anything about it. She always, and she
Hmm.
said, the big mistake I made, she said, and nobody told me, was that you should never accept that from the child from the beginning. You've got once
So
you
you
just,
just ignore it.
well, not
Like,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I do actually explain it in some detail, but there
yeah.
are certain things that guarantee, practically guarantee, that your child will speak to you in your language as a
Hmm.
native with your accent. But it's not common, and a lot of people, especially in Spain, they're surprised when they hear of cases where oh, your child's so happy, your children are so lucky because the dad is American, so they're all going to speak English at home, and you find out that they speak really badly, which is the thing. Or so it's not an automatic thing. There are reasons why the parents don't speak to their children in the language, and I've put that in the psychological section of my book in FAQs. All right,
okay.
so anyway, we can go. Do you want to go through the five? Actually, here's the book. The five key strategies of successful bilingual families.
Let's do this.
Well, I'm actually thinking of renaming the book, actually, because it hasn't been as successful as I thought.
Like 5 do's and don'ts or something, maybe.
Well, I don't know. I was going to put like the 5 principles of raising your child in, or something like that. I don't know. Like the Spanish book is a little clearer, Las 5 estrategias para criar un niño bilingüe. A little bit clearer. I don't know. It's sometimes difficult. Anyway, it's going to be exactly the same. So let's have a look at the 5 strategies. Books for sale on Amazon, just in case you have to be a mother or father.
Do you have it in an ebook format as well?
It all comes, because on Amazon, if you look at it, especially if you go to the .es, the Spanish one, I think you can get it on any of the Amazons. But it comes in Kindle, paperback. I don't know if it comes in hardback or whatever. It's a really, really good price as well. And it's worth it because you can easily go wrong. It's not as easy as you think it is.
And I think
I'll just speak to my kid in English a couple of times a day or Spanish. They'll pick it up. No, they won't. No, they won't. I'm sorry, and they say, "Oh, but you're not like this." So it's it's very emotionally charged. People get think about values and principles, and people can get really upset about it. It's very hard to ask someone, "How well do your children speak English?" It's a very touchy subject because it's like you're a failure. You're a failure as a parent. That's what I think. That's what's implied.
That's what people think. But I mean, I think it's like the biggest present you can give your child, like forcing him to learn a language.
Exactly. That's why we don't call that. So the special name we call it is called a heritage language. All right. So it's your heritage language because you are giving the inheritance or the heritage, not just, it's more than a language, it's your culture and it's your identity. So if you're, for example, if I spoke to my son in Catalan or Spanish, what would I be giving him exactly? There are there are 45 million other Spanish people in Spain. He doesn't need one extra one to speak to in Spanish. I can give him something special, So the current situation is he's 16 years old and he speaks like a native, absolute native speaker.
That's perfect.
It's like in any language, you obviously here in Catalonia, we speak Spanish and Catalan and we swap. And sometimes, I don't think anyone really speaks both languages like 100%.
Perfectly. 100%,
I mean, sometimes he did mix up the other day. He said, I'm going to meet my friends for dinner when he meant lunch because he was translating dîner. But it's a vocabulary thing and it happens to even to English teachers in Spain.
Yeah. I mean, if it's like 99%, it should be more than enough.
Bilinguals and trilinguals, we sometimes mix things up. It's a small sacrifice. So the first thing, 5 strategies. Number 1 is one parent, one language, OPAL. Okay, that's a classic one. It's not mine, but it's one parent, one language. So I'm English. My ex-wife is Catalan, and we were together for 14 years. Okay, so she only spoke Catalan. I only spoke English. He looked at us and he knew exactly which language to speak.
Ah, and how does it work then if you're all speaking together?
Right, the dinner table, that's what some people say. Very easy. I mean, the good thing, and this is a very important thing, we all understand each other, okay? So my wife, even though she didn't particularly like learning English, but she could understand it. So I would speak to Mark in English, and then basically we'd just speak out. I'd speak to my wife in Spanish, she'd speak to Mark in Catalan, and we'd speak English together. So we're 3 languages simultaneously.
That's cool.
People that have heard that in England are going like, "Oh my God, that's just not right. There's something wrong with that." It's just that's confusing. No, it's not. It's just normal. It was normal for 14 years of our life. It just happened.
If you were like somewhere, I don't know, outside, people maybe looked at you, right? Like, what's
Only,
going on here?
only in England, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a bit strange. People say, but isn't that confusing? No, it's not. You just get used to it.
I mean, there's a rule and you stick to it. That's it.
I would say don't. Yeah, some people. There is actually. I do say you can be a little bit flexible in some cases where it may be that the child is rebelling or something. You could say, well, let's relax it in certain situations. You know, like at the dinner table, we all speak Spanish. All right. I never had to do that because it never. I know my wife was a little bit ex-wife, I guess you could say, didn't always like it, and I felt that maybe I don't know maybe in one language there is a different kind of dynamic, you know. But I've always been very stubborn and very strict, which maybe is a good thing or a bad thing. But I sometimes what do we do? Yeah, I spoke to my wife in English as well at the dinner table in the end. So it was like she was speaking to him in Catalan and the rest of the conversation, and me in Spanish, but the rest of the conversation was in English. So she was learning English at the same time, but she wasn't that interested in it. But she was really interested in Mark being bilingual. So everyone has to be on board. Everyone has to want to do it.
Yeah, if one parent doesn't want to, and the other.
I had situations. I interviewed parents in Spain, you know, and some of them, you know, their partner wasn't happy about it. But you've got to do it. It's an amazing gift, as you said. So one parent, the second one is one language to you. Your child only speaks to you in your language. No mixing. Yeah. Some people say, "Oh, but why not?" Because why not? You're taking advantage of the time. You know, for example, I'm a working dad. You know what I mean? I wasn't with Mark 8 hours a day, and he was going to a trilingual school, which was okay, Catalan, Spanish, and English. But you know, he was getting English for a third of the day. But he also needed English from me, especially in the beginning before he went to school. I was the only contact apart from American TV and British television on CBeebies. You know, so. You know, every minute I'm with him, I want him to speak English with me, always. Speaking Spanish, he doesn't need to. He's got his mum, he's got his friends, he's got everyone else.
Yeah.
So don't mix it. Why complicate your life? Why complicate it?
But did it ever happen that he would try it? And then how did you cut that?
Yeah, okay. So this is the big question. It did happen once and only once near the beginning, and it's in the book. Once he wanted some ice or something. It was a really hot summer. And he said, I think he said it in Catalan. He goes, we gel. And he was speaking to me. I said, Mark, I don't understand that. Sorry. Either. In the very beginning, you can say you don't understand, but later on, it sounds weird. So you say, no.
He's like, I know language, you do.
But he doesn't. He didn't know that for a long time, actually. And in the end, especially Spanish, anyway. And anyway, afterwards, you say, just speak. What language does Daddy speak? You know, say it like Daddy does. And I just said, sorry, I don't understand. If you want it, you better ask. You want to ask me for ice, but otherwise you're not going to get it. So he threw himself on the floor like this, and in the end, he came, Daddy, I want some ice. Oh, right, now, okay. So now I gave it to him, you know, and that's the only time it ever happened, ever. Or when he was 12 or 11 or something like that, he said to me, he suddenly became worried that his Spanish was really bad, which was true. He was speaking to a neighbor. And the neighbor said to my wife, your son speaks Spanish like he's a foreign person, but he's been born here in Spain because he didn't have any Spanish friends. He went to a school that only did Spanish 1 hour a day. He didn't watch Spanish television, except sometimes he heard Telecinco in the background from my wife. And he didn't have any contact. So obviously Spanish, he was speaking it badly. I don't know if that ever happens in Vic. That happened to me as well. Catalonia. Right, it happened to you as well, probably, yeah.
I grew up in Catalan. I never, for me, Spanish was a passive language for many years.
Right.
So when you have to kind of start speaking, it didn't sound, I think it sounded very Catalan. And then, but then you just pick it up. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So he said to me, Dad, I need you to speak to me in Spanish to improve my Spanish. And I said to him, you've got 46.5 million Spanish people in Spain and one English dad. I think you can find someone else to talk to. And that was the way. And I said, speak to your mum. Your mum's a Catalan Spanish speaker. You know, she speaks Catalan and Spanish. Speak to her. Get her to change from Catalan into Spanish. She's a native speaker, for God's sake. You know what I mean? And she never did. And he just left it, And
I
even
mean,
now,
over time,
yeah.
you just watch stuff in Spanish and you end up speaking Spanish to some people, and then it just,
it changes. So right now, he had to change school after we got divorced. So he's going to a local school, and more people there speak Spanish, and so he's improved a lot. But even the other day, he said to me, like even 2 weeks ago, he's 16 now. He just said I still don't feel that I'm like fully like thinking a lot in Spanish. I even think, amazing, he's born in Spain, but he said sometimes that phrases come to me in English, because he watches everything in English. Like he got into the habit. I got him into the habit of watching everything in English and listening to YouTube, podcasts, songs. 90% of it is only recently that he started listening to stuff in Spanish. Well,
I mean, I think if he follows some Spanish podcasts or like regularly, it will be like in no time he will get to, because
eventually, I don't worry about it, because when he's 21 or whatever, like he should, but he'll never speak Spanish like he speaks Catalan, and maybe not even English. It's interesting. People are quite shocked, maybe in Madrid, because of the Catalan, schooling system.
Catalan people are, it's their fault, yeah,
of course. I mean, up to a certain point, there is some truth in it, but you say, well, look, we're defending the language of Catalonia, so
and
Spanish,
I mean, you're trilingual, so for me, like, it's also for me being a polyglot. Like right now, I was trying to say a sentence. I noticed I was thinking in German in a way, like I was gonna phrase it, like I would phrase it in German, and then I'm like,
that's what happens, isn't it, when you speak different languages?
Yeah, I mean, it does. But for me, it's like a sacrifice I'm really more than willing to accept, because I speak now 8 languages, like at different levels. But it's such richness that I don't mind even losing some of my even native languages like Catalan, or you could say Spanish.
I mean, I think when you
I don't mind, because it compensates a lot more than just being like, no, I'm gonna speak, I don't know, perfect English or perfect Spanish, and that's it. For me anyway. Like it's a personal choice, I guess.
Okay, so we got the first one. Opal, one parent, one language. Your child only replies to you. That's the biggest mistake you can possibly make. But don't let them talk to you in your language ever. Okay, and if they do, you've got to keep it to the minimum. That is the big difference, because then they're not practicing the language. The third thing, strategy 3, is to provide enough exposure. It's input. So they have to get massive input. I mean, this is basic to any learner of a language. This is strategy 1 in my new book, which is get a lot of input. You've got to get massive amounts. You've got to be with the child even when you're supposed to be working. So that was a bit stressful sometimes. I'd get home, I'd spend a couple of hours talking to him, playing, when I would have preferred to have just either gone to bed, So that made a big difference. Spend as much time as you can. Make sure when you're not there, the TV or everything they look at in the language that you want them to speak. That's so important. Number 4 is provide enough speaking opportunities, which is linked to strategy 2. They should only speak to you, and they'll never, strategy 4, provide enough speaking opportunities, will never happen if they don't speak to you in your language. It's horrific to think about it. I can't imagine having a conversation with Mark and us speaking 2 different languages. It happens. Like I have a Danish friend, and he's always spoken to his daughter in Danish, always. So she's a passive learner, let's say. She can understand everything. She hardly ever speaks to him in Danish, and I've said to him, but he doesn't care really. He doesn't really. It's not important for him. He says, she'll speak it when she wants to. But for me, maybe I don't know. Just the more you speak, the better you get at speaking. Even professional speakers have to practice thousands of hours to become good speakers in their own language. So you need to speak and explain things, and it just seems more natural as well. I actually
know a guy from my job. He was brought up in Germany, but his mom was from Venezuela, so she would speak Spanish to him, and he was a passive, let's say, not speaker, so passive
bilingual,
but then at some point he himself decided to activate that knowledge, and he started like having tandems and taking courses, and he now speaks it very well, but like with a noticeable accent. So I think maybe that's, in that case, like if the person then really has an interest to learn it, it's a lot easier, I think, to learn it, because of course you have already had a lot of input and all those passive words in your head, right? But like the difference, I think, is that you don't get to a native speaker level, I guess.
No, it's very difficult. No, you're right. This is why I say parents shouldn't give up if the child doesn't reply. If they haven't managed to get that one language to you, keep speaking anyway. It's really important.
It's better than nothing.
Well, yeah, because they're going to have native comprehension. That's the amazing thing.
That's already amazing.
And if they do want to learn it later on, I mean, we do have a lot of, a few polyglots online saying, oh, you only need input and then you'll speak later. But you need to speak to get better at speaking as well. You reactivate the vocabulary. Speaking is a profession, and it's a skill. So you need to use it. And if you don't use it, it's just not going to come out. You need to practice a lot over many, many, many years. So it's better than nothing. That's the thing. It's better than nothing. Keep speaking.
But it's not ideal.
And if they want to, because this is what happens when they go to the country, for example, if this person goes to Venezuela, then they're going to have to speak Spanish anyway, so, and they'll understand everything, and they'll go, wow, I'm glad my mum spoke to me in Spanish all those years. And some people actually that I've spoken to here in Spain, one said, oh, my mum's American. And I said, oh, wow. So she said, no, but she's never spoken to me in English, ever. I said, you serious? She says, yeah. And I said, this is where we come to the psychological part of why parents don't. And she said, because in Spain, a lot of people want to speak English, and he goes, what an opportunity. You could be like a bilingual speaker. And she feels that, unhappy with her mum now. She has a certain feeling of reticence, and
I mean,
why
it is a great gift you can give, and if you don't give it, it's like, why didn't you do it?
Why didn't you just speak to me in your language? And she said, why don't you speak now? She says, oh, don't make me think. But I bet she speaks Spanish to her American friends in Barcelona. I'm sure the mother does. The reason is, and she said, I think what happens is a lot of young mothers or fathers, it can happen as well, they want to feel that they are part of the culture, part of the community. It's affiliation. And if you're speaking a foreign language, you're a foreigner. But if you speak the local language, you might think that you're one of the local people. But imagine look at this face. I could never look Spanish in my life. Even now, even if I speak Catalan, people speak English back to me. They don't even know what language I'm speaking. They can't even recognize that, Catalan would come out of this face, when it's speaking. So what's the point? You know what I mean? You're always going to be a foreigner. You have to accept it. But what I would say to those people is have one life as a foreigner with your child, and then do whatever you want when you're not with your child. Be Spanish or be German or be whatever.
If you go to the mall with your son, now I'm curious, and you're going to buy something, you would approach the person in Spanish or Catalan, or because you're with your son, you would approach that person.
Of course
in
not. No, I mean, I speak to people in their language. But if I'm in front of other people, I only speak to him in English, and we speak in front of his friends. This is something that a lot of children don't like.
Yeah, it makes them feel like different.
Yeah, but it's amazing. He was born here, but they still call him, Giri, which is like, a foreign person.
Yeah, I know, Giri.
And Giri, and he's never. He went to school in England for 6 months at a boarding school just to get some more input. But he's he's from here, but people still think of him as a foreigner. Look at his name, surname, and he speaks perfect English. At school, the schools, as soon as they even speak English, it's like, oh, he's a foreigner. It's a really weird thing, So he's still got that. I feel that's a gift. It's an amazing thing, though. He's never lived, properly or be born in England, but he sees himself a little bit. He feels British and Catalan or Spanish at the same time. He feels both nationalities. It's a good thing to
That's
get them a
really cool.
passport as well. He has a British passport,
Oh, that's
so
good.
it's a good way of feeling part of the country. It's another
And I mean,
technique.
with the Brexit, it would be probably difficult
Well,
to, if
well,
you
not now.
once,
Yeah, for him, yeah. Now it's okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, but
because
I mean, now it's good
yeah,
that he has the passport, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he can go back to England, and nobody knows that he's ever lived outside England.
Wow. That's pretty
Nobody.
cool.
He's so lucky. He doesn't understand how lucky he is. He really doesn't. All those years of practicing your accent and trying to improve everything, and he's just natural. He doesn't
That's
even
really
like
cool.
languages much, so but he speaks three. So that's amazing. So those five things: one language, one parent. You only let your child speak to you in your language. Get lots of input, as much as you can, and let them speak to you. Have conversations. And finally, number five is language is a journey for life. So you've got to think of it in the long run. Okay, it's commitment to it. You don't say, I get to 12, oh, they speak now, we'll start mixing the languages, and I won't be with my son or daughter so much. It's something, it's part of your identity, it's your heritage. In my opinion, you should take it with you for the rest of your life. It's not something,
Yeah.
now they got the language, that's it, I can do something else. But it's part of your relationship with the person. So you've got to keep it going.
Yeah, don't be like, now he speaks it, now we can switch finally. That would be weird.
As if I wanted to. Yeah, as if I wanted to. No, I've never really had that. I did. Again, I met a teacher who loved Catalan, and she even wrote to me in Catalan, even though she's American and I'm English. And I said to her, she has, I've had like a 4 or 5 year old. I said, all right, how's what level of English, and well, so she kind of speaks to me in Catalan. So, what language do you speak to your daughter? Well, I kind of mix it a lot, some Catalan, some English. So I said, well, there you go. But she wasn't following any of the plan, and it happened the way it happens because she wanted to feel Catalan. You know what I mean? She wanted to speak Catalan like a Catalan person, and she as I say, do that everywhere else. Be Catalan. Be American or English with your child, or Spanish with your child. Laura in Switzerland or Germany or whichever German language speaking country you live in. Where do you live now?
I live in Switzerland now. I've been living here for like 3-4 months.
Where are you? Which part?
I'm in the Bern region, so it's a German speaking region.
Okay.
Yeah, but I work in French, so I also speak French on a daily basis, and I hear French a lot here because the region Bern, well, it's actually a mixed region, but I live like in the German part. It's pretty cool, yeah.
So there we go. So I mean, if you had kids, could you imagine yourself following the 5 strategies of successful bilingual families, or would you start getting, I want to feel more Swiss, I want to be a Swiss mom?
But the thing though, like I would think, what if your family is like trilingual? Like, because for instance, in my case, like I like my mother tongue is Catalan, and my husband speaks German, but his family speaks Russian, right? So
hold on.
Yeah.
German.
Like they're originally from Russia, but he grew up in Germany. He speaks Russian.
He speaks Russian. They brought him up in Russian, did they?
Yes.
Using
and he
my
speaks back,
5 strategies.
He speaks, he speaks back in Russian to them.
Oh, brilliant.
Right?
That is so good. Yeah, they've done it the right way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I will tell them that. But the thing though is like, I would think, okay, like, well, I don't plan on having kids, but if I ever do, like, would he like, would you recommend him speaking Russian to them, even though actually his daily language is actually German?
Yeah, so, I would. I've actually got, because I wrote this book a few years, I've actually got another acronym for families like that, actually. It's basically, it's instead of being one parent, one language, it's like 2 parents, 2 languages. So it's 2P2L. So basically what that is, in fact, this is almost the perfect situation. So imagine in your case, so you speak, well, you have a little bit of a dilemma because you think, well, Spanish is a lot more useful in the world than Catalan is. But Catalan for you is a heritage language. It's part of your identity, so you might have to just think professionally, and imagine, okay, so in the end you go, right, we're going to speak Spanish, okay, because it's more useful. But if your husband, the logical thing is for him to speak Russian, because speaking German, there's no added value.
Because it's already in the surroundings.
Think of your child as a client, as a customer. Okay, how much value can we add to this client? Because if I speak German, they're going to speak German outside the home anyway. They've got millions of people to speak to. Everything's in German. So you've got it's the perfect situation. It's the 4-language one, It's like, so you get Spanish from you, Russian from your husband, German outside, and probably French. So they'll grow up with 4, they'll be polyglots from birth. And that's unbelievable. It's like in Catalonia, for example, if my wife had been French, we'd have had French and English, Catalan and Spanish.
Yeah.
It's the perfect situation in some ways. And they can do it. They can do it, by the way. They can learn.
Actually, there are I've heard
they take longer, but they do it. They do it in the end.
I don't know where exactly, but there are some countries also in Africa where there are several languages for different situations, and people grow up I don't remember where it was exactly, but everyone kind of speaks 5 languages, and it's normal. I think if the surroundings would be that way, then it's not I think people have a lot of mindset issues about, oh no, there's only so much your brain can kind of hold or whatever.
That's when you don't know about it, and it's a monolingual type of attitude, and people do get shocked. They go, oh, it's confusing for the poor child. Oh, don't. So somebody told me
it's torture.
You're torturing your children. You're treating them badly. It's the child abuse. Things like that. That used to be very old-fashioned. Actually, in my book, I didn't even put I actually said I'm not going to try and convince you of the benefits of bilingualism, because I think it's obvious. But I mean, right now, if anyone's still, why would you have a doubt anyway? Because you're not speaking your language because of the benefits of bilingualism. You're speaking because it's your heritage language. That's the reason why. Obviously, social reasons, for traveling, for jobs, for cognitive reasons as well. Obviously, you can resolve problems better. You've got more flexibility, and okay, there are some, it's not 100% proven, but it seems pretty obvious. But another thing is it seems to delay the onset of dementia and Alzheimer as well.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Especially for people in my age group are going to be like that in 10 years, you know what I mean? So it's so I mean, just that is a benefit in itself. But you have to plan your life. It's amazing. You have to be less selfish. Okay, you have to plan your life around the language of your child going forwards. Making your home half German, half Russian. Making, so when you have a bilingual home, you're choosing the schools. I chose a school that was very difficult for me to afford, and now I can't afford to pay for it. That's why he's no longer at that school, because it had English, Catalan, and Spanish, and everything has to revolve around that. Where do you go on holiday? We're going to go somewhere where they don't speak English. No, we went to England every year. So a little bit of imagine how horrific life is having to spend the summer in England. What a sacrifice. I could have gone somewhere nice instead.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's basically it. So you've got the 5 plus build your life around that. What do you think? Do you think you could, what did you think of those? Is it too strict, or would you be able to do that?
I could think it's doable, but I think you need to be very strict. Because for me, as a polyglot, when someone speaks to me in a language, my reaction is to speak in that language. So, being that strict and being no, we're now going to speak. So, but if you have in your mind, you have the idea, okay, this is going to be very beneficial, then I guess you can do it, right?
Yeah, because a lot of parents say of something I don't understand, and I think it's not, parents are not 100% truthful. He said, "Oh, but my baby or my child just kind of spoke to me in the language," and I think if you're a mother and you're speaking your mother tongue, they're not going to hear any other language anyway, probably. And if you have, so how are they speaking to you in another language? I think it's just an excuse. I think that the parent speaks to them in the local language. I think it's a lie.
They just forget, or they're like, "Oh, today I'm tired," and then
why would they
once you start.
I don't understand that, because why would you, if you're tired, you speak your native. Yeah, that's true. You can't talk to a baby. I don't think even, I would find it hard, talking to a baby, even after 34 years in Spain, hey, or, so it just talking to a baby, me baby, it just sounds, doesn't even sound right even now, because it's not natural to speak to your baby in German or French, especially for you,
But I don't know, like for me, I have the feeling that my default language is now German, because it's the language I speak the most. It's the language I speak at home. So I could imagine for those people, if like their language, like their habitual language, or like, I don't know how to call that, has become another one. Maybe like the default in their brain is to speak that language, even if they make mistakes. Because, for instance, I do not speak perfect German, but still I think in German and I dream in German, and it's a little bit weird.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a topic for another day. But
yes,
because people always say, what language do you dream in? Because I mean, I speak obviously, Spanish, Catalan, English, and French, and basically I speak the language of the people I meet in my dream.
Yes.
So, I wouldn't say, I speak Spanish and Catalan every day, but then again, I also speak English every day. So I'm able to, it's like juggling. I keep I've got all three going all the time, and it's been great because it's very, very, it's kind of balanced. I speak Spanish with everybody at work, and in the streets and everything, but I never feel that Spanish is my default language ever, and even when I was like living with my wife, we always spoke Spanish, and I watched a lot of Spanish, and but I never felt it was ever going to be my native language. Has always been and always will be English. And I think you've got to just mentally program yourself to do that. You don't need to default to another language to speak it well. I thought my Spanish isn't going to get worse because it's not my default language after 34 years, and I should be Spanish now because I've got a Spanish nationality in my passport, and soy español, ¿sabes? A partir de ahora solo vamos a hablar en español. No, it's not to be like that. I mean, I've got my Spanish personality, I've got my Catalan, I got my French one, I got my English one. So
that's beautiful. Awesome.
That's great. So does that answer all your questions? And I hope anyone has any questions.
I really liked it. We actually said it's going to be a short video, but because it was so interesting, it got a little longer, but it doesn't matter. And we're going to do another video in Catalan to learn about how you learned that language and a little bit like your story with that language. And thanks a lot.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
Yeah, okay. And if anyone has any questions, and you'll probably put the books in the description.
Yes, I will. And and we will also actually do a video together right after this, and I will also link Simon's YouTube channel down below. So thanks a lot to everyone for watching, if you reach the end, which not everyone does. And also thanks a lot to my Patreons. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.